wait. Good afternoon again to everyone who's joined us today. Today is also special because we also have the global network of the Urban 95 cities with us. Today, we all have gathered here to start the Urban 95 Experience Sharing Nurturing Neighbourhoods Challenge webinar series. In this series, we hope to highlight the journeys that the 10 nurturing neighborhood lighthouse cities are taking to scale up the young children-friendly lens in their respective cities. As you all know, Nurturing Neighborhoods Challenge is hosted by India's National Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, the Smart Cities Mission, a national urbanization program for 100 plus cities, the Bernard Vanlier Foundation, and World Resources Institute, India. The challenge is a 3-year initiative that aims to work with Indian cities and the partner agencies to pilot and scale ways to improve public open spaces, mobility, neighborhood planning, data management across all city agencies. It also aims to build a platform where there is some sort of peer-to-peer learning and sharing of best practices and inspiring ideas with each other. The Urban 95 Experience Sharing webinar series is an excellent opportunity to explore this model where knowledge sharing happens between multiple cities and between the global network of Urban 95 cities as well. So without further delay, I would now like to welcome Ms. Ipshita Sinha, India representative, Bernard Vanlier Foundation, to please give us a welcome address for today's session.
Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes, Ipshita.
Thank you, Arunima, for initiating the session. As I look around, I largely see that this is a group of friends who are familiar within our network of the work that we've been doing under the Urban 95 program. But just to give you a little bit of a background in terms of the foundation. So the Bernard Vanlier Foundation, for those of us who are unfamiliar with its work, believes that investing in the early years of a child sets them on a path to realizing their full potential, which in turn sets the foundation for a healthy, fair, and peaceful society. With that vision, we decided to focus on the urban landscape because most infants and toddlers in the future will be concentrated in the cities, and our Urban 95 program, therefore, looks to create healthy, safe, and vibrant cities where babies, toddlers, and their families and caregivers can thrive. In India, we have translated this via the Nurturing Neighborhood Challenge that Arunima just introduced. This is hosted by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in India, along with the Smart Cities Mission in India, the Foundation, and the World Resources Institute. I will not take up more time because the rest of the session is really to talk about what are the lessons that the different cities have had through the challenge, but I welcome you all and passing it back to my colleagues at WRI.
Thank you, Ipshita. Thank you for that lovely welcome message. I would now like to welcome Mr. Sri Kumar Kumaraswamy, Program Director at WRI India, to please give us a brief introduction to these stories of transformation that we are going to see in the webinar series.
Thanks everyone for joining this webinar. The sharing between the cities, the peer cities of the Nurturing Neighborhoods Network and also the larger Urban 95 network. I take this opportunity to thank our partners, especially Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, for leading this Nurturing Neighborhoods Challenge all these years. We also like to thank Bernard Vanlier Foundation for their constant support in ensuring that we are able to implement this and for their constant backing. Also thanks to all the cities who participated in the Nurturing Neighborhoods Challenge. They have exhibited a tremendous kind of potential of taking this idea of children-friendly cities, which can be scaled across a number of cities. In this, I'll talk a little bit about how this challenge evolved in the past 3 years and where we are right now, just to give background for people who are joining newly in this. The Nurturing Neighborhood Challenge was launched in 2020 by Honorable Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs. through open call to cities across the country to participate, and 63 cities participated through application process, and out of which 25 cities were identified through a panel of jury, and then through a technical support for this 25 cities for over a period of 8 months. The 25 cities implemented their solutions for young children friendly cities in a neighborhood, and based on their demonstration, there was again a jury and another level of a jury to identify top 10 winners. And then in the last 2 years, we have been working with this top 10 cities to be able to scale their solutions, go from pilots to scale up across the city and across sectors. And we have been very happy to see a great a response, and we are able to see this scale up actually happening on the ground. So we will see more of that as we go through the webinars. So the main point here is that how the cities have really managed to do experimentation through pilots, and then from there really going from the idea of pilots to scale it up across various areas of the city, both spatially through repetition of projects, but at the same time also developing institutionalization of the projects, of the solutions, of the approach of young children oriented approach in various government processes, such as say engagement and institutional setup and capacity building of the personnel in the city agency and so on. So we will see this story evolving in two important distinct ways. One is that what we see is cities have developed a replicable template of how to work on a on a children-friendly approach, right? How to develop neighborhoods and projects which are focused towards children-friendliness. And this template is not only physical projects but also institutional and all the soft components of really engagement and ensuring that maintenance is taken care, in engaging with champions and NGOs and everybody involved in the ecosystem, and taking this forward. So this templates, the replicable templates is one. And then the second one is cities also have taken a step towards transforming their urban areas through this idea of children friendliness. So what we see is that there is a whole number of programmatization of projects which are happening, which includes taking up a certain type of project and taking it across the city. Instance, development of number of public spaces across the various wards of the cities, Anganwadi centers, and using these to reimagine the public spaces at a neighborhood level, especially in the very local areas where children and the caregivers, especially women and the elderly, spend most of their times. So these two aspects of one is a children-friendly approach, experimenting it, at the same time trying to create a sort of opportunity for transformative change by addressing this lens, right? So that is quite interesting to see. Various cities have tried in their own different ways to achieve this, and we will see these stories from the cities, the city leaders, and the people who are really involved in getting this done. So it will be a great learning exercise for all of us to see how they went ahead and managed to do this. And this we are going to achieve it through the discussions, a series of discussions over 7 seminars in the coming months. And these 7 of these 7 seminars, 5 of them are going to be really listening from these key change makers, or the key the key people who drive this challenge. And then 2 webinars, we will also reflect on what we have achieved and what this challenge has really enabled, and so on. So through this process, we hope that we make a compelling story for all of you to your interest, to think about how this urban change can be achieved through children-friendly lens. Now, thanks for everyone to joining this webinar, and now we will go ahead to hear about the story of Rourkela and Indore. Thanks again.
Thank you, Shri. Without further delay, we'll now begin with the most exciting part of today's webinar. We'll start looking at the work of the 2 cities one by one. During this time, I would request all the panelists and attendees to keep themselves muted, and there will be a Q&A session after each city's presentation. We will begin with Rourkela as the first city. Rourkela is an industrial town spread around the steel plant. The city houses tribal population and has a lot of vulnerable settlements, some of which are dedicated for leprosy-affected families. However, the public spaces and parks in the city are available predominantly for the planned residential areas and are mostly inaccessible for residents from informal settlements. Using data-driven approach, the city is prioritizing the provision of parks and play spaces to improve access for informal settlement. Rourkela started its journey in 2021 with the Nurturing Neighbourhoods Challenge, where they implemented multiple pilots. Learnings from these helped the city to frame its vision to incorporate the child-friendly lens in vulnerable settlements. The transformation started with the city engaging with multiple stakeholders, bringing convergence with state schemes, clustering of child-friendly projects in vulnerable settlements, and capacity building. Thus, the scale-up strategies were defined. Till now, the city has seen a great impact with considerable increase in access to ECD services and public spaces, with around 500 stakeholders involved in this entire process. Rourkela is focusing on child-friendliness in vulnerable settlements. As the city has been scaling up, the interventions have made a positive impact beyond the vulnerable communities, blurring the boundaries between the formal and the informal settlement.
आगु पार्क थाइनी कि कादुओ रास्ता थिला आम पिला छुआ खेलबार लगे बहुत असुविधा होता बर्तमान यहाँ बहुत सुविधा है पार्क है छुआ मैंने भल भाव खेली पार्छन आगु छुआ मैंने पूरा बर्तमान कादुओ खेलुले माटी जगार खेली खेली छुआ मान माने इन्फेक्शन होता कौन होता एवं बहुत
प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था वैक्सीनेशन के लिए आती थी तो बट इस बेबी के टाइम में फीडिंग कराने में मुझे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। यहाँ आती हूँ, बहुत अच्छी फैसिलिटी दी गई है गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से DAV MSC में।
झाड़ू भी करूछु आ पिला मानको भी आमे जगा रखा करूछु पिला मानको।
आमर ये जो सामना क्वार्टर ओल्हेला माने गाड़ी 4टा बेलू आम छुआ पूरा पड़ी आसुचंती आराम से खेलुचंती पूरा 7-8टा पर्यंत खेलिकी जाउचंती तांको मन पूरा खुश। दूर दूर पार्क जो रोतला निजे जाउथलु बसुथलु छुआ को खेलुथलु धरिके आसुथलु एबे जा हो हमर 6-7 मास हेलानी से टेंशन आ नाही।
Now we have with us some of the city champions actually, and to begin with, we have with us Dr. Shubhankar Mohapatra, CEO of Rourkela Smart City Limited and Municipal Commissioner of Rourkela Municipal Corporation. Let's hear from him.
William Wordsworth once put it, "The child is the father of man," reflecting that the various abilities that a child develops gradually goes a long way in strengthening him in the future and so determining the future of the country and the society. Throughout this Nurturing Neighbourhood challenge, it has been a great learning experience. For example, the study tour by Urban 95 Academy to Copenhagen helped us learn of how to bring about urban development seated around or centered around the ITC lens of the infant, toddler and caregiver. Further, it has helped us to enhance, to view the city from the unit of a family, to develop public spaces centered around everyone in the family, the father, the mother, the infant, the toddler, and this has helped us in long way to give an empathetic, a holistic and a more of a sensitive approach to developing a child-friendly city. Rourkela is one of the major industrial hubs of the city, housing India's first integrated public sector steel plant. So basically, this has, with rapid industrialization and urbanization, it has led to the development of a lot of informal settlements, and as we call them as slums. And we focus in our approach in Nurturing Neighbourhood Challenge towards providing facilities to these slums, and among these slums to most vulnerable slums, which included slums of leprosy rehabilitated people. So our first major approach was to create learning spaces and play spaces for infant toddlers, and which further went on and at a higher level to provide learning spaces in the form of porta cabin libraries in the 4 major slums of Rourkela. In addition to that, we developed more than 30 Anganwadi centers, model Anganwadi centers, where the various cognitive, integrative, emotive, social and psychosocial needs of children could be catered to with using BALA or building as learning aid techniques. In addition to that, we provided an integrated approach of integrating a mother's needs in the form of Mamta Gruha along with the Anganwadi center, so that the mother and child development can go hand in hand. In addition to that, we tried to make our urban health and wellness centers more child friendly. In addition to providing breastfeeding pods at the 4 major offices which have the highest footfall in the city. In this entire approach, we have been very lucky to get the support of the community, because all these approaches were done to a bottoms-up approach involving all stakeholders, from Anganwadi workers, local civil society organizations, of various citizenry, the official staff. So it indeed helped us to plan all these methods better. As part of the scale up, as we discussed, we are planning to make all Anganwadis, which will number to close to 100, as child friendly. In addition to that, in addition to our urban health and wellness centers, we are further taking up activities in the more 10 additional health wellness centers and other big areas such as huge marketplaces, the Panposh market complex and other areas, to make them more child friendly. We are also trying to develop certain special units for children where they can play depending on the various things in which they can play and learn, or the various things that we learned as part of the Copenhagen program, to develop certain tailor-mades new to them in our various parks in Rourkela. In around, as of now, we have taken 24 parks in the scale-up phase. And further, we are looking to target, we have made a map-wise analysis of the entire city, where actually we need to focus more in reaching out to the children. And most importantly, we are trying to use the community in managing the parks, managing porta cabin libraries, And we are further strengthening the concept of the SDAs, or the Slum Development Association, who have already taken the responsibility, shouldered the responsibility of managing these Pota Cabin libraries and Mission Shakti groups of managing these parks. We have established a fully functioning Nurturing Neighbourhood cell in the Rourkela Municipal Corporation with the support of the Rourkela Smart City Limited. We further are taking support from various organizations. We would like to take the support of various organizations in designing. We are also designing a library in Civil Township with one section dedicated exclusively to infants and toddlers and their caregivers. In addition to that, we are further strengthening our institutional setup and capacity building. We would try to mobilize funds from various civil society organizations, leveraging and dovetailing funds across different programs of the Government of Odisha and the Government of India, collaborating with the health system or the National Urban Health Mission, so that we can look into the various diseases affecting children. And above all, we are trying to develop a common framework in which every citizen of the city of Rourkela may participate to make Rourkela one of the most ITC friendly cities, not only in the country but across the globe.
We also have with us Mr. Ronit Kumar, Assistant Deputy Commissioner, Rourkela Municipal Corporation. He's also the nodal person for Jaga and Mukta Mission in Rourkela.
Mukta scheme, basically the full form is Mukhyamantri Karma Tatparata Abhijan. In this scheme, we are engaging Mission Shakti groups along with Slum Development Association to basically develop different community assets like roads, drains, for sanitation purposes, for developing open space, for creation of water body, for developing child play stations, for developing open space, open air gyms. The open air gyms are also located besides the child play stations. Along with this, many different schemes like the open space development, if you see, sitting spaces are also developed. So in sitting spaces can be helpful for the caregivers. The caregivers can watch their child play in the child play stations, because child play stations and this open air gyms are located just side by side. Also in open space development, we have sitting spaces, so the caregivers can also use the sitting spaces to relax. As well as we have the Jaga mission. The Jaga mission is basically, it started in 2017 and developed different community assets like roads, drains, for sanitation purposes, for developing open space, for creation of water body, for developing child play stations, for developing open. And the Jaga mission has also convergence with Mukta scheme. Basically in slums, we develop roads, drains, sanitation, open space development, child play, open air gym, all of this along with the land, and the Jaga mission, along with this, there are different schemes like Unnati scheme, in which we developed lighting, in which we developed sanitation and other services for the child as well as toddlers. We have integrated funds from Rourkela Smart City Limited. We have developed a sensory park. The sensory park is also used by children for their play, and we have funds from RMC, Rourkela Municipal Corporation. Rourkela Municipal Corporation has developed different libraries in slum areas. So the slum children, those who are generally poor, they don't have access to education facilities. They have now reading spaces. They are utilizing these spaces. We can see them. We have got very good response from women self-help groups. They have improved their livelihoods by utilizing money which they have got from Mukta scheme. And we have also got very good feedback from slum children and slum women, as they have their lifestyle have improved. They have got basic facilities. Their slums are now more safer, as because earlier we had open drains, we had very poor roads in which the children may fall or they may get injured. But after development of these walking tracks and after covering of all drains, the slums are now safer. I would like to share a personal story of a mother and child. The mother named Pooja Jena of one of our slums of RMC. She said that we had no access to any child play station, or we had no like clean slums in our locality. Now, after development of this child play area and open air gym in their respective slums, she is very happy, as she don't need to now take her child to far away places to make him or her play. And now her own slum is now more safer for her children. So this is a very personal story, the good feedback which we have got. And so overall statistics we see, we have converted 82 slums into Biju Adarsh colonies, and more than 1 lakh children and 50,000 caregivers have been benefited from this Mukta and Jaga mission. So with this, by integrating Mukta scheme, Jaga mission, funds from Rourkela Smart City Limited, from Unnati scheme, PMAY, and using RMC funds, we are making Rourkela more safer and more improving the livelihoods of vulnerable communities like infant, toddlers and caregivers, as well as slum people and poor people. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Mr. Sarthak Rath, the Nodal Officer for Nurturing Neighbourhoods Challenge for Rourkela and architect, Rourkela Smart City Development Limited.
So in Rourkela, we are trying to make various kind of programmatic intervention, such as we are trying for holistic approach. So we are developing, we are working in various thematic area. So like we are developing 81 number of learning based play area in 81 number of slums. Then we are creating 80 number of Anganwadis with Bala concept, that is building as learning aid concept. And we are also adding play spaces in front of those Anganwadis or AWC center. Then we are making 10 number of PSC public health center, ITC friendly. And then we are installing 10 number of Pota cabin library in 10 different strategic location. So all these are projects which will be helpful to all the infant, toddlers and caregivers in their development. During this Nurturing Neighborhood Challenge, we just created one separate entrance for the children of Anganwadi. So, and we redeveloped the Anganwadi with Bala concept, that is building as learning aid. Before the number of students coming to the Anganwadi was around 10 to 12, but after redevelopment and all this transformation happened, the number of students coming to Anganwadi increased by around 100%. So the number became 20 to 25. So it was a drastic change, and I could say the behavioral change that was being bring to the Anganwadi teacher, Anganwadi Didi. So it was also remarkable.
Lastly, we'll hear from Mrs. Kapra Hansta. She is an Anganwadi teacher from Durgapur 1 Anganwadi, an NCL member and a local champion.
देखिए, पहले आंगनबाड़ी में तो जैसे अभी जो 1 साल में जो हुआ, तो पहले ऐसा नहीं था। तो पहले हम लोग का स्कूल का साथ में आंगनबाड़ी अटैच है, इसलिए एक ही 2 एंट्रेंस था, जहाँ पर बारिश का मौसम में पानी जम जाता था। तो बच्चों को एंट्रेंस में थोड़ा सा आने में बारिश का समय में थोड़ा सा दिक्कत हो रही थी। तो अभी क्या है कि स्मार्ट सिटी का जो तरफ से जो काम हुआ, तो इसके लिए हम लोग को अलग से एंट्रेंस मिला, एक तो परिवर्तन हुआ। उसके बाद में हम लोग का क्लासरूम में परिवर्तन किया गया है। तो क्लासरूम में एक कलरफुल किया गया है, जिसको मतलब जो है कि बच्चों को बहुत इंटरेस्ट आती है, जो कि बच्चे लोग इंटरेस्ट से आते हैं कि हम लोग का आंगनबाड़ी के अंदर में इतना सारा पिक्चर बनाया गया है सारा चीज़ का। तो पार्क जैसा उनको लगता है कि स्कूल जैसा अभी नहीं लग रहा, कि उनको कि खेलने के लिए अभी आने से क्या है कि वो एंट्रेंस अच्छा से हो गया है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। खेलने के लिए झूला लगाया गया है, बच्चे सब ओजोन में खेलते हैं। उसके बाद में क्लासरूम कलरफुल हो गया। उसके साथ में हम लोग का एक जैसे पहले हम लोग अपने मतलब डांस करके बच्चे लोग को गाना और कहानी हम लोग सुनाते थे। अभी क्या हो कि प्रोजेक्टर माध्यम से हम लोग उनको दिखा के हम लोग पहले हम लोग सुना के करते थे, अभी क्या कि दिखा के बच्चों को कहानी और गाना जो सिखाते हैं। तो ये थोड़ा ये सब में परिवर्तन है जो बच्चे लोग के लिए थोड़ा अच्छा है। तो अभी सब थोड़ा पहले बुला के लाना पड़ता था, अभी के बच्चे अपने से आते हैं। पहले क्या है कि एक ही हम लोग का आंगनबाड़ी क्लासरूम में ये सब, जिस दिन हम लोग का हेल्थ चेकअप और इम्यूनाइजेशन हो रहा था, तो उस दिन क्या है कि हम लोग का बच्चों का पढ़ाई में दिक्कतें आ रही थी, हम लोग को प्रॉब्लम हो रही थी। एक साथ में एक रूम में वो लोगों को मतलब बिठा के सब करना बहुत मुश्किल था। अभी क्या है कि एक तो ममता गृह अलग से बनाया गया, जिस पर हम लोग प्रेग्नेंट वुमन को वहाँ हेल्थ चेकअप होता है और इम्यूनाइजेशन वहीं पर होता है, तो अलग से हो रहा है। तो ये हम लोग के लिए बहुत अच्छा सुविधा हुआ है। हमको बहुत खुशी होती है। उसके बाद में जैसे कि दूसरा आंगनबाड़ी में भी ऐसे होना चाहिए बोल के हम सबको बताते हैं, तो हम लोग का आंगनबाड़ी में ये सब डेवलपमेंट किया गया है, तो सबको वही भी वो लोग भी बोलते हैं कि नहीं हम लोग को भी ऐसे आंगनबाड़ी में होना चाहिए। तो हम उनको बताते हैं कि ये सब करने से मतलब जो कि काम होने से हम लोग को कितना अच्छा लगता है, बच्चा लोग भी इंटरेस्टेड रहते हैं, हम लोग भी बच्चा लोग खुशी खुशी आते हैं, तो हम लोग को भी खुशी लगता है कि चलो इतना अच्छा काम हुआ है तो अच्छा है, तो दूसरा आंगनबाड़ी में भी ऐसे मतलब जो कि होना चाहिए। अपना जैसे कि छोटा टाइम से लेकर 6 साल का अंदर में लोगों का हर चीज़ का मतलब विकास बहुत जरूरी होता है, तो हम लोग उसमें जो है कि हम लोग का जैसे ICDS में हम लोग का मतलब पहला प्रायोरिटी हम लोग दिए हैं कि बच्चों को खेलना। जैसे कि हम लोग सिलट में चौक खोड़ी पकड़ के वो इसे उतना जरूरी नहीं है जितना कि वो लोग को मतलब खेलने का माध्यम से, अपना गाना का माध्यम से, अपना कहानी का माध्यम से जिसको उसका ब्रेन का डेवलप किया जाता है, तो इसलिए इन लोगों का खेलने का बहुत जरूरी है। और जो भी अभी इंस्ट्रूमेंट दिया गया है खेलने कूदने का, ये बहुत अच्छा है।
Thank you. That was some great transformation I think we saw from the city of Rourkela. We'll now open the session for some question and answers. We have with us Dr. Shubhankar Mahapatra today. So I can see many questions coming up in the chat window. So the first question is from Itisha. Can you share your experiences of implementing child responsive spaces in slum context? What were your key considerations? Sir, if you can hear me and if you could unmute yourself and if you would like to take that question.
A very good afternoon to everyone. This is Shubhankar, Rourkela Smart City CEO and Commissioner, Rourkela Municipal Corporation. As far as this specific question is concerned about implementing in slums, what is very much important is slums basically till date are very gated communities. It's just that children in slums finding, because slums have got built up because it's a very congested space. So then finding a particular place inside a slum or an adjoining slum where children would go and play, that is the first priority, number one. Number two, that place which you are using should not be also used by another specific interest. For example, like in the state of Odisha, we have something called as a Parichaya Graha. It is like a meeting space which is being made for the community, that the community, slum community can come together for any meeting or any discussion, because we have a strong concept of an SDA here, which is a Slum Development Association. So their meetings can be held. So it is very helpful if the Parichaya Graha is scheduled adjoining to the station adjoining to the child play area, because then what happens? The watch and ward gets established easily. That is one. Second is the space must be chosen in such a manner that it is accessible and there are no issues with the entire community. Like for example, if you take it, like certain slums are very huge slums, and for example, this leprosy slum is leprosy pada slum is in the foothill of a mountain. So their safety also has to be taken equally into account. So the natural terrain of where you're locating it will also matter. So as far as all this things are important when you're explaining a child, first thing is the accessibility of the place. The second is the terrain of the place. Third, the community interaction. Fourth, the social capital involved. Fifth, the costs involved. Like, because if you choose it at a very difficult terrain, then the costs might be a detriment factor in achieving what you want to achieve. Because at the same time, it is not only establishing a place, but it's also about maintaining the place. Next important thing is the community involvement. Just making a space is not important. Just further that the community takes ownership of that place. Like for example, if you build a space which is very, very far away, like you build a place which is very, very far away, then what will happen is the watch and ward will fail and the community cannot cannot manage that particular thing. The SDA will not take interest in managing that thing. So I personally feel that all these considerations should be taken. The accessibility, which is most important, the economics of the thing, the natural terrain of the thing, the social capital of the thing, the future maintenance of the thing, and all these considerations must be considered while making a child responsive space. That be from my side.
Thank you so much, sir. So we have a second question if you have time. It's asked by Ankita Kumari. It would be good to know more about the mobile libraries developed by the Rourkela team. How were the stakeholders involved and the content finalized?
So as far as mobile libraries were involved, on a pilot basis, we started in 4 locations. The first and foremost consideration was we basically took the slums which are very large in size, because it's very intuitive that if it's a large slum, then you have more people of that age who can come to the library and read. Number one. Number two is we took an account of the SDAs. We got the demand from the Slum Development Association of who actually want to operate the library. The library today is not operated by the corporation, it is operated by the SDA. They find the security, they themselves have the watch and ward, they themselves decide which books to procure. The third important thing is the slums which are more congested, we focused more on them, because what happens is they don't have those reading spaces inside their houses. For example, we have a Nala Road slum, which is basically a Muslim dominated majority area, and Muslim girls, for example, have this. So if when it is located, that place is located adjoining to that slum, what happens is, and that place also has a city center, and in addition to that, it was an integrative planning. We also have a Millet Shakti cafe running nearby to that particular library, which is this is the International Year of Millets, of healthy food, and that is also being managed by an SHG. So that entire watch, ward, and safety component is there. In addition to that, what you've done is where people have taken more interest. There's certain people who have come together, people after the retirement who have come together and provide education free of cost in those libraries. The Chen library is a very nice example of it. There, people after retirement have come to provide that honorary service of helping people to read. So that also went as a consideration. When we went for portable libraries, both in Chen, in Basanti Colony, and as far as Satlala Chowk was concerned, we also made a play area nearby. That whenever you get bored of too much of reading, you can go to play, and like that is like all reading and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And so as you know, so whenever that particular thing which the childhood adage goes, so we try to integrate both the things. So a Millet Shakti cafe where women SHG members can be there, or parks where they can maintain. Second, you can have a play area, and then nearby you have a Pota cabin. So basically, Pota cabin library. Basically, it's education, nurturing by women, and at the same time, reading that can go through. So taking in an integrative approach has actually helped us, and we can see the responses are very encouraging. So we are seeing that the SDAs are also equally active. We're just giving them hand-holding support. But now, and being solar also, it has also started promoting the concept of clean energy, and Rourkela is also signatory to the Climate Change Pact by UNDP. So as a whole, it has been an integrated planned approach to basically this Pota cabin libraries and child spaces. And another thing which I would request all people is like, whenever we're making a big infra, what happens is we just have small adjoining spaces to it. And those spaces we definitely must explore, place making, because we made a Birsa Munda Athletic Stadium. The small space came nearby, and that we developed into a small play zone. And the crowd which is there, like it is actually very encouraging and inspiring. Like it's that near a 150 crore stadium, that small space which is built at an expenditure of 10 or 15 lakhs, and seeing the footfall there of the nearby 4 or 5 slums is much more inspiring and encouraging. So if that can be done, and it requires a personal involvement, I would thank my staff at both RMC and RSCL for the nodal officer and my deputy commissioners and all for giving that much effort and helping make Rourkela ITC friendly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We know you have a busy schedule, but thank you for taking time for this. We'll now move on to the next city. Any remaining questions, we make sure that those are responded to. We'll now look at the second city that we have with us, Indore. Indore is leveraging spatial analysis to base their decisions on data. By mapping network of blue-green infrastructure across the city, potential intervention sites are being determined. These are then further prioritized by looking at proximity to amenities and vulnerable settlements. The identified areas are targeted to form interventions, bridging the demand-supply imbalances and improved access for vulnerable communities.
Indore started its journey in 2021 with the Nurturing Neighbourhoods Challenge, where they implemented multiple pilots. Learning from these, the city envisioned to develop more than 500 parks and gardens across the city. Indore started by setting up a carpentry workshop to upscale natural play in parks, clustering ECD facilities and open spaces in vulnerable settlements, and enhancing climate resilience. Till now, the city has seen considerable impact, with a significant rise in time spent outdoors by young children and families, more than 3,000 stakeholders engaged, and 50 plus champions created.
सब महिलाएं, सब बस्ती के लोग कह रहे हैं बहुत अच्छा हो गया है आंगनवाड़ी। अब हम लोग हमारे बच्चों को रोज डेली यहाँ पर पहुँचाएंगे पढ़ाने के लिए और खिलाने के लिए।
अच्छा भी लगेगा कि नेचर के बीच वो आकर खेलेंगे। कि नेचर के बीच उन्होंने छोटे छोटे बुक्स और साइकिल फूल वगैरह बनाए, तो उनको मिट्टी से संपर्क होगा, सब तरह का उनको थोड़ा सा विकास होगा, मेंटली अच्छे से स्ट्रॉन्ग।
चैलेंज चल रहा है, उसके अंतर्गत 13 स्थानों पर बहुत अच्छे बच्चों को खेलने के लिए सुविधा उपलब्ध कराई है, जिसमें मेन रूप से अर्जुनपुरा, मच्छी बाजार, प्रेमनगर एवं संस्कृति कॉलोनी है, जहां इस स्कीम के तहत बच्चों को खेलकूद के लिए सब सुविधा स्थान उपलब्ध कराया गया है।
We'll now hear from some of the city champions. Firstly, we'll have with us Mr. Divyang Singh, CEO of Indore Smart City Development Limited and Additional Commissioner of Indore Municipal Corporation.
So as you all know, that Indore has been working in Nurturing Neighbourhood project for long now. And to give an idea that initially whenever urban development is thought of, it was a very piecemeal and ad hoc approach which we used. But in Indore, we tried to make it more inclusive and tried to bring in all the parameters of developing gardens and developing open spaces by keeping infant toddler in mind and their caregivers in mind. We worked ahead for the inclusive development of garden. We have all in all 1400 plus gardens in Indore city, and we have kept in mind that since from the point of conception to the point of development and maintenance, we keep in mind the needs of infant toddlers and their caregivers. This will provide an all over and complete rounded development of child, and why not to develop our open spaces in a way that the social development, the cerebral development, the physical development of the child is taken into consideration, and to make garden a place where a child can learn and grow at the same time. We have involved different voluntary organizations, NGOs, public participation in a very big manner is being involved into developing these gardens. We also try to incorporate the existing structures which are there within the city and existing assets that we have as a city administration to be involved and to be incorporated into our project. We have reclaimed many old Anganwadis also into the project of Nurturing Neighbourhood project, and we reclaim the open spaces in a manner that we can generate, that they can work as an awareness center, not only for those who are directly involved in child development, be it the parents or caregivers, but also to general public, so that the whole idea of how environment in general and the space, the public space or the private space in general impact the growth of child and in deciding the better and healthy future of children. At the same time, we try to expand the existing structure and we try to utilize the existing manpower that we have, be it in terms of the manpower of IMC or the manpower of Smart City, and to train them in the process so that this thing actually continues and in a sustainable manner be implemented later on in the planning. We try to incorporate it into urban planning in such a way that even after 5, 6, 7 years, when we decide to make or expand the city or decide to redevelop the city or reclaim the open spaces or generate new avenues of public spaces, we keep in mind the necessities and need of child in general. As all the work that we have done, we are very hopeful that we will create a better, safe, inclusive and a participative urban development, which will be a safe and a positive place for child, toddler and caregiver to grow and to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have with us Ms. Rourkela Chopra, Assistant Planner from Indore Smart City Development Limited.
So in Indore, we have been focusing on developing these open spaces and open gardens in the city as per children's need and infant toddlers and caregivers needs. But then we are not taking this challenge as a separate initiative or a separate challenge, but this is going on simultaneously with the other development works. So far we have completed more than 10 dedicated sites, and we have initiated more than 100 sites in the city to work upon as per NNC. So far Indore has been doing great in terms of developing spaces as per children needs, as per ITC needs actually. So, majorly while working towards the initiative, we have been more focused on connecting the greens and blues in the city. So that's the main motive, what you can call. And depending on the greens and blues in the city, the map goes about the open spaces lying in between these channels, these connectivities. So basically, like I said, this is not a different initiative. We are not treating this as a different initiative, allocating any different workforce for this. But then all the undeveloped gardens which are there in the city, plus the urban pockets which we have created at city lumps, so those have been included in this initiative. So earlier, when we talk about how to identify these spaces, so these spaces have been identified on the basis of density of population in that area. Basically, measure more number of children density in that area and how the accessibility is, how we have evaluated the accessibility to these open spaces as well. So if the caregivers or the infants or the toddlers can reach to these spaces or not. So these are few of the parameters. So I can say this very proudly that carpentry workshop is one of the biggest initiative, you can say the hero initiative the city has taken. So earlier what used to happen was this wood from cutting and trimming of the trees. Other than the palm and eucalyptus, we are using all the wood to create garden furniture, street furnitures, playing equipments, you can say. Even now the furniture is being developed for the nurseries as well, for our nurseries as well. So we have appointed 2 carpenters from Indore Smart City, skilled carpenters actually. And you can say there is addition of new machinery every 6 months to this carpentry workshop. So it is going on really well, and it is being appreciated, I think, on the global level as well. So this has been good so far. So challenges, you can say the department was not well aware of the benefits of setting up these kind of workshops, and generally the staff was like, why to appoint this? Then we faced major challenge in setting up these workshop physically to that area, because that area is, you can say, a very remote area of the city. So reach of electricity to that area, and still and then the other major challenge we faced was to hire these skilled carpenters who know how to operate these particular kind of machinery. So there are a few particular kind of machineries which are being used to cut these big huge logs of woods. So this was the major challenge that we overcome somehow. It took us 6 months to find skilled and the specific kind of skill the carpenter should have. So it took more than 6 months. Then the acceptance about this furniture, earlier only the iron benches and iron furnitures and iron children playing equipments are being used. So acceptance towards these shift of material in these open spaces is one of the major challenge as well. And plus right now also we are facing that this carpentry workshop is situated in such area, so the reach is very difficult. So we are in the process of overcoming to that as well, making roads toward to the place, making the carpentry workshop in a whole accessible manner. So yeah. You can say inclusivity we have always taken care of. So we are just not focusing on children, or as I am saying since beginning, that this is not a separate challenge. This should involve in one's behavior, and this should get involved in one's culture as well. So this should be a regular practice, that these things should be developed as per children as well. So it is actually said, what is good for children is good for everyone. So I think this, if we take this thought ahead, we can achieve everything in the city in terms of inclusivity.
Next, we'll hear from Mr. Devesh Kothari, Assistant Engineer, Indore Smart City Development Limited.
अब मैं बात करूंगा प्रेम नगर स्लम की। ये एक थोड़ा सा शहर के मतलब थोड़ा सा आउटर में मान सकते हैं। यहाँ पे एक विशेष कम्युनिटी रहती है। इस कम्युनिटी का प्रोफेशन है कारपेंट्री ही है। दे डील विद बैम्बू से वो झाड़ू बनाना और इस तरह के कारपेंट्री के काम उनका प्रोफेशन ही है। यहाँ पे हमें खाली प्लॉट सा मिला, गार्डन था, मिट्टी थी, पर वो बड़ा ही अस्त व्यस्त और बेतरतीब तरीके से वहाँ पे कूड़ा कचरा पड़ा होता था। हमने इसे टेकअप किया, यहाँ की साफ सफाई कराई, इस पे मिट्टी डलवाई, इस पे लैंडस्केपिंग कराई, इस पे पौधे नए नए अच्छे जिसमें फ्लावरिंग प्लांट्स हमने यहाँ पे पौधारोपण कराए, वो डेवलप हो गए। और हमने पाया कि भाई वहाँ पे उनका जो प्रोफेशन है वही कारपेंट्री है, तो क्यों ना उन्हीं से बम्बू लेके और उन्हीं बैम्बूज से एक वॉल बना दी जाए। हमारा ये आइडिया बड़ा ही सक्सेस हुआ। उन लोगों ने बड़ा इंटरेस्ट लिया और काफी कम समय में, अगर हम बाहर से किसी एजेंसी को बुलाते और वो काम कराते तो बड़ा टफ और टाइम टेकिंग होता, पर उन्हीं लोगों ने, चूंकि अब ये उनका प्रोफेशन था, तो उन्होंने 3 से 4 दिन में समझता हूँ कि इस छोटे से टाइम पीरियड के अंदर पूरी कंपाउंड वॉल बैम्बूज की बना दी, उनको बांध दिया, तो वो एक बहुत ही सुंदर गार्डन उभर के आया है। वो आज की स्थिति ये है कि उनके बच्चों को खेलने के लिए उस जगह पे वही एकमात्र गार्डन है, और वो जो कि पहले कूड़ा फेंकने की जगह हुआ करती थी, आज की स्थिति ये है कि वो आज उन्होंने उस चीज को ओन कर लिया है और वो उस गार्डन की खुद ही केयर करते हैं। उस गार्डन में कोई गंदगी नहीं होती है, उस गार्डन की जो लैंडस्केपिंग है, उस गार्डन में जो हरियाली हमने की थी, आज उस चीज को वो मेंटेन कर रहे हैं।
Last but not the least, we have with us Mr. Rajesh Nath and Ishwar Nath, who are actually residents from the Prem Nagar slum.
हमारे लिए तो बहुत अच्छा ही हुआ कि जैसे आदि कॉलोनियों में व्यवस्था नहीं है, हमारे लिए यहाँ पे थोड़ी व्यवस्था हो गई, तो अच्छा ही लगता है कि जैसे बच्चे वगैरह स्कूल से आते हैं तो टाइम थोड़ा बहुत आधा 1 घंटा खेलने लगा देते हो। पहले बहुत ज्यादा गंदगी थी, अब रहने करने के बैठने उठने का हो गया, मतलब व्यवस्थित गार्डन हो गया है बस्ती के लिए।
पहले गार्डन भी नहीं था दीदी, यहाँ पे बांस रखते थे दीदी, वो जगह नहीं थी, फिर हमारे को वहाँ जाना पड़ता था रोड से कम 1-1.5 किलोमीटर, फिर अब गार्डन बन गया तो अच्छा हो गया वहाँ।
व्यवस्था यहाँ पे सही होने लगी तो हमारे को लगा
अच्छा
कि
लगा,
थोड़ा बहुत
हमारे को
सहयोग
बहुत अच्छा
अपन करे, तो फिर बाम्बू लाए, उनको पेंट करा, फिर पत्थर आए, उनको भी पेंट करके जैसा हमारे को भी
अच्छा लगा,
स्वच्छता
बहुत
के
अच्छा
हिसाब से
लगा।
अच्छा लग रहा था, तो फिर जितना बना इतना स्वच्छता हमने भी करी, जितना सहयोग लगा।
Thank you. I think we saw another great story from Indore today. We'll now open it up for some questions. We already have some questions in the chat. Nancy has asked, how is the sustainability of these projects ensured? We have with us Mr. Devesh Kothari, Assistant Engineer, the Indore Smart City Development Limited. I would request him to please take up the question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon. नमस्कार. As far as sustainability is concerned, हमारे पास में मैं आपको बता दूं, हमारा इन-हाउस कारपेंट्री वर्कशॉप है। वहाँ पे वी हैव एबिलिटी, स्पेशलिटी है हमारी कि हम वहाँ पे एक तो ड्यूरेबल वुड हम वहाँ पे प्रोक्योर करते हैं, उसके साथ साथ हम जो वुड का प्रोक्योर करते हैं वो उसे 3 टाइम्स टेस्टेड वो होती है, तो सस्टेनेबल है, वो काफी सस्टेनेबल है। और अभी भी हम अब 2-2 साल हो रहे हैं, तो आज भी हम अगर वहां पे जाके देखते हैं तो जो कहते हो हमने जो फर्नीचर जैसा बनाया था वो वहीं पे पाया जाता है, तो सस्टेनेबिलिटी इज नॉट एट ऑल एन इशू.
Thank you, sir. I think that also answers another question by Itisha about how far this wood will sustain. Does anyone else have any other questions for Indore? You all can put your questions in the chat and we'll Okay, we have another question. How did Indore ensure community engagement and playfulness while doing these initiatives in the vulnerable settlements, especially?
मैम जो हमने साइट्स चुने थे जिसका मैं एग्जांपल दूं आपको तो अर्जुनपुरा है। अर्जुनपुरा इज वेरी क्लोज टू अ कम्युनिटी जहाँ पे कि पहले ऐसी कोई सुविधा नहीं होती थी। वो मतलब वहाँ पे एक स्लम था, स्लम के बच्चे वहाँ पे बहुत सारे थे। उन बच्चों के पास में ऐसी कोई फैसिलिटी नहीं होती थी कि आसपास कोई गार्डन उपलब्ध हो, तो उनको वहाँ पे एक बहुत ही अच्छी फैसिलिटी मिल गई, गार्डन मिल गया। गार्डन में बहुत सारे उन्हें खेलने कूदने के लिए और बहुत सारे इक्विपमेंट्स हमने लगा दिए कारपेंट्री, और वो सब सस्टेनेबल हैं, वो सब नेचुरल मटेरियल्स के हैं। हमने सैंडपिट बनाए। ये देखते ही बनता है कि बच्चे उसमें काफी मतलब उनका बचपना वहाँ पे वो बिता रहे हैं।
Thank you so much, sir. In the interest of time, we'd like to move on. Thank you so much, Mr. Kothari, for giving us your time today.
Thank you.
In the interest of time, we'll move on. We are already running a few minutes late, but I would ask everyone to please hang on. So thanks everyone for the questions as well. The remaining questions we'll take up in the chat itself. As you all know, Nurturing Neighbourhoods Challenge is in its 3rd year of the challenge, and with all the cities now scaling up in their cities the young children and caregiver-friendly lens in various ways. And what we just saw from Rourkela and Indore, those are some great learnings and insights that many other cities across the globe can use as learnings, right? So we're trying to kind of compile all of these learnings into a document form for easy dissemination. And we would like to kind of call it the learnings from learning case studies. I would now like to call Mr. Paresh Kumar, MEL Technical Partner, Bernard Van Leer Foundation, to please introduce the learning case studies.
Thank you so much, Runa, and thank you everyone for being a part of this very engaging session. But before I begin, I must congratulate the entire WRI team for this fantastic accomplishment. What we just learned about the 2 cities of Indore and Rourkela, that's commendable. The topic that I'm going to cover today, which is introduction to learning case studies. So this takes me down to my memory lane somewhere in 1999, 2000. I was working on a study on a World Bank rehabilitation project. I was on a field trip, and on return I was asked to submit a field trip report, handwritten report. There were no computers there. I submitted. My boss saw it and said, "Good. Now tell me, what did you learn?" I said, "Learn. It was a great experience. Saw a lot of new things." Said, "Okay. So what if you were asked to repeat the same study again? How would you have done it differently?" So I said, and then my brain started ticking, and I said, "Okay. So basically, we did not have the letter from the district authorities. We did have it from the state level, but we did not have it from the district authorities. And our team really faced some resistance from the mine owners. So that was when I said, okay, next." Then we said, okay, I think next time when we go, we'll take a jeep instead of taking a car, ambassador car, because the terrains were very difficult and hard to reach areas. And next, what next? So we could probably have had female, team members, in our team, because there were a lot of female respondents, and they were not very comfortable in, discussing and talking to our male team members. But this is not there in a field report. That's what I said. You have not documented your learning. So basically, the point that I'm trying to make is that all of us, we experience, we gather a lot of learning in everything that we do, but we forget documenting it, and therefore this point on learning case studies today is really very important. So I am cognizant of the time, and therefore I'll try to move really fast on this. Can we move to the next slide, please? So as I just said that learning is about reflection of the experiences that we have had in the past, and it helps us identify how a situation or future actions could be improved, and then using this same knowledge and the experiences to make the actual improvement. And we all know that previous learning provides a base for the current and the future learning, and by the way, it's an ongoing process. And it goes throughout the life of a project, and this mindset should be strongly encouraged by the project leadership team from day one of the start of the project. And then learnings are, it may be informal, but then it is very important to formalize it, to document it. That's where creating learning case studies are really important. So learning, when it is shared, when it is documented, it ensures that projects, particularly projects like the NNC, where we work on multi-city projects, where activities can build on each other's efforts to make a significant difference through adaptation and application of best practices, good practices, identification of challenges as learning opportunities. And learning shared externally helps create broader opportunities for the program when it is documented and shared widely. Next slide, please. So, how do we now document what are the components of the learning case study? So, a good learning case studies must necessarily have some of the basic elements, but it can be developed on different tenets or different specs of the projects. When we do, it can have specific learnings pertaining to the processes adopted, the approaches used. For example, we just heard about the Rourkela initiative, where they talked about bottom-up approach, which is a great idea. When we talk about, there were a lot of questions about the issue of ownership and sustainability. Now, this is something when we design or develop a project which by using a bottoms-up approach, I think the ownership and the sustainability is naturally ensured over there. It can be based on key insights gained during and post implementation project. For example, in the Indore, where we said that, okay, we are using the the local communities to becoming a part of the intervention, where all those bamboo workers, they were used. So basically, this is an interesting insight that can be used while replicating or scaling up these interventions. And like we just said that learning need not just be about good practices and best practices. The challenges and the setbacks, etc., that we encounter in our while implementing the project at different stages of the life cycle of the project must also be can also be a part of my learning case study. The outcomes produced, to see how there were a lot of results that were discussed in both the city examples. So this can be a case study. And if we understand, if you are familiar with the simple logic model of any project intervention that we carry out, which involves the inputs, using the inputs we do activities, and with the activities we create outputs, we deliver outputs, and when we deliver outputs, then we achieve outcomes, and then the outcomes leads to our objectives or impact or the goal or whatever you call it. Now, learnings in our project life cycle can happen at all of these levels, and see where the importance, why these are really important. If we gather and document learning at the level of our output or the activities, that can easily feed into our ongoing program activities, and the teams can do the mid-course corrections, etc., which will then further yield to the desired outcomes for the project. The learnings that are documented at the level of the long-term outcomes or the impact, that's really very important at the overall program level, where a similar kind of a program is to be replicated in another settings, these learnings are extremely useful, right? So that's the importance of learning, developing learning, documenting learning and developing learning case studies at different stages of our project life cycle. Next slide, please. So since the NNC works in 10 different cities, so we've just tried to think and list down some of the kinds of or the types of case studies, learning case studies can be developed. Some examples from us particular city project could be on the need for seeking timely approvals for relevant government departments and officials. So since both the projects so very nicely elucidated on how all these stakeholders were engaged, the city officials were engaged. So this is a good practice. A best practice can be documented in form of learning case studies. Something on the need for pilot testing of the interventions. Both the city projects that got launched in 2021 had pilot projects, and based on the learnings of those pilot projects, only the final designing and development of the projects happened, based on the importance of taking feedback from target users. Similarly, best practices for engaging stakeholders and building partnerships. So very nicely we saw how the convergence of different programs in Orissa happened. The Jaga, the Mukta, or the SHG interventions were very nicely converged. That could be one of my learning case studies. The case study on need for creating community awareness and mobilization, because we have seen this example where the this dump yard was being reclaimed to be a service providing center. So why to break all those inhibitions, etc. That hey, this was a dump yard before, I'll not send my children over here. So if something of this sort has happened where community awareness and mobilization activities were carried out, this can be a good learning case study example. Or the importance or challenge of regular maintenance of the infrastructures created. So whatever infrastructure we create, to ensure sustainability, having our interventions or the infrastructures sustained is very important, other than those impacts and the institutions that are created. So therefore, operations and maintenance is a very important part, and any other innovative approach to urban design and planning, etc. that's used can be extremely useful. In both these cities, we have seen how innovative approaches were used to ensure good better outcomes. Next slide, please. And if you see, in totality, in wholesome, from the project point of...
I'm very sorry, if in the interest of time, if it's okay to
just last slide.
Make it a little bit
This
shorter.
is the last slide.
Okay.
Just 30 seconds more.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure. Thank you.
So basically, when we are looking, looking to develop learning case studies from the holistic, overall program lens, seeing it, in what kind of policy and planning decisions that needs to be taken, because every city has different policies, guidelines, etc., and all of that. And then, planning resources or mobilization of resources or utilization of resources for a multi-city initiatives can be, looked at, from the learning case studies lens. And before I end, I really wish to say that whether we are using lessons learned to prepare for current projects or for identifying improvements, we learn from project failures as well as success. So both failures and successes. By not really not learning from project failures, we are doomed to repeat similar situations. So learning case studies of failures are equally important as documenting our good practices. And similarly, by not maximizing the project successes, we miss the opportunity to implement good processes and practices to successfully implement the existing and the future work. So the next slide, this is just before we close, learning should be encouraged and rewarded. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you for keeping it and giving us such a wonderful description about what learning should be and how can we benefit from it. We now want to share with the cities a very short version of what this learning case studies for Rourkela and Indore will look like. So it's basically a document where we want to show Rourkela and Indore's the journey so far that they have taken. And the process of transformation that both these cities have gone through, what their strategies have been, and where did they start from, beginning at the NNC in 2021, and how did through these strategies did the cities grow and make some kind of impact with the young children in their respective cities. We know that both these cities are still on their way to making their cities young children and caregiver friendly, but yeah, till now, whatever the cities have been able to do, we are trying to kind of capture that story in this document. And this will be shared with the cities and the larger global network as well soon. So thank you for this. So now, just the last bit of the webinar today, we'll take a short reflection session from what we saw for both the cities, Rourkela and Indore. So may I invite Ipshita Sinha, India representative, Bernard Bandia Foundation, and Madhura Kulkarni, Program Manager, WRI India, to please give us some reflections based on what we all saw in today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Firstly, appreciate everyone's patience for hanging around. I know that we're a little over time, so I won't take too much time, but a note of appreciation for both the cities and the officials from the cities in participating through the discussions and really the healthy Q&A. For me, I think the biggest takeaway is the importance of learnings. I love the framing that you made, Paresh, that, you know, we all are so embedded in our day-to-day work that we forget to abstract out, though I must say, you lost me at log frame. We're going to figure out how, you know, between our various cities, not just in India, but how we can make this a platform for learning amongst the larger global urban 95 cities. I'm really glad we have representatives on this webinar from other geographies as well. Would, you know, love your feedback and experiences as well. This is just the first in a series of webinars that will be around sharing what the lessons have been learned. And I think also creating a spaces for what hasn't worked. We should be fairly open and transparent in sharing what has worked, but also what hasn't worked, because that's how we'll all take this journey together. So really grateful to WRI for initiating this, and over to you, Madhura.
Thank you so much, Akshita. I think this, of course, is very learning for all of us in terms of how these cities of Indore and Rourkela, they are scaling the initiatives while keeping the most vulnerable at the center. So that's the key thing what both the cities are doing. And while Rourkela is, you know, focusing on reinventing Anganwadi or spaces around Anganwadis as public spaces, Indore is reinventing the approach towards making them more natural and using natural materials, scaling across the city. But these are the ideas and the visions through which these cities are scaling the aspect of young children and caregivers in the city. But now the major challenge is to operationalize this vision or operationalize these strategies on ground, and which will need a lot of support from the different stakeholders which are there in the city, who keep talking about it more, who are engaged more about it, and, you know, they take the ownership of scaling it across the city. So with that note, I would also want to end and would like to thank all of you for joining this session, and I hope the learning continues as we hear from more cities under the Nurturing Neighbourhoods challenge, and more models of scaling how cities are contextualizing. So we started with creating cities for young children and caregivers, and how different cities, 10 cities across the country, have come up with a very interesting and an innovative approach towards, you know, making themselves young children and family friendly. So I hope the coming sessions would help all of us to learn more from them as well. Thank you. Over to you, Arunima.
Thank you, Ipshita. Thank you so much, and thank you, Madhura, for I think shaping up and kind of summarizing the entire session. I think it was a great session, and it was great to see such great transformation that is happening in both the cities. So without further ado, I think we can close the session for today. And with this, we come to an end. And just to remind everyone, we also have 6 more webinars lined up. 4 of them will have 2 cities each talking about their stories. And 2 other webinars will be talking about the overarching aspects of Nurturing Neighbourhoods Challenge. And we'll soon be sharing a schedule with the larger network. So that we keep on, we remember when the webinars are. I hope it was a great learning experience for all of us. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today.